Hello and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today we're here with episode 64. It is Thursday, June 26th. It's been a while since the last episode, about a week. I'm sorry I'm not getting them out as quickly recently, but I'm about to, get the release schedule a little bit better. Getting back to doing the episodes earlier on in the week. It just takes me, I'm so busy on the weekend, then it takes me a while to get caught up on the fights, but I'm caught up. We have a ton of news to talk about. It's going to be a bit of a long episode because there were so many events this past weekend. Some breaking news that's gone down, a lot of UFC announcements in particular. And we're going to start just right ahead with the biggest UFC event, biggest UFC breaking news, biggest UFC storyline of the past year, really. And it's finally ended this chapter. Jon Jones has retired. Finally. He is not going to fight Tom Aspinall. He has vacated the heavyweight championship. Tom Aspinall and new undisputed heavyweight champion of the UFC. It's official now. We're never going to see Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall. Well, I don't want to say never. Never say never. Part of me isn't sure if Jon Jones is actually retiring. I'm honestly not even too upset, even though I really wanted to see Jon versus Tom. Part of me is just happy that it's just all over. This whole back and forth and Jon ducking him for a year and refusing to make the fight. I mean, it's just been ridiculous. And hearing the fight's happening, but we're not getting anywhere close to the fight happening. And it's just been such a nightmare. So I'm glad that Jon finally just said, all right, I'm retiring and it's over. So just my 2 cents on it. I think that Jon Jones has, I mean, he already had a lot of issues outside of the cage, right? All of his, take it from the arrests to the drug test to all the other controversies. He's had a lot of stuff over the years that have kind of tarnished his legacy. But if we're talking about just purely his fighting career and the fights he fought, I think that ending like this is really, really going to hurt his legacy as a potential GOAT. He did not fight everyone who, a GOAT is somebody who fights every challenge that's there and comes out of it on top. And he didn't do that. He spent the last few years of his career not fighting, ducking, and I mean, it's such a pathetic end to what otherwise could have been something great. And I really do think this is kind of, I don't want to say it's ruined his legacy because again, he does have this still Hall of Fame career, but it's definitely hurt his legacy a lot. I mean, what are we going to remember Jon Jones for? Are we gonna remember him for his title runs and for his big wins and stuff? Are we gonna I mean, I'm sure we will, but I feel like everyone's really gonna mainly remember. Yeah, he ducked Tom Aspinall at the end and then retired, so he didn't have to fight him. And I don't understand why he ducked Tom so hard. I get it, Tom Aspinall is the new bad boy in the UFC's the shortest fight time ever, I think, and is so dangerous and so threatening. And I get it, Jon was afraid to lose, but you're a fighter. This is what you do. And by the way, I would put Jon Jones as a favorite over Tom Aspinall. Call me crazy. I don't even know if that is crazy. I think most people would honestly agree that, push comes to shove, I would pick Jon Jones over Tom Aspinall. But because his ducking, it's made the fight closer, and it's made Tom Aspinall the guy. I mean, he's really boosted Tom Aspinall's stock. And I mean, now, Tom Aspinall needs to have a good title run. Because if he gets in there and loses his first title fight, it's just so like, what did we do all this for? Why did we fight so hard? I do think he'll have a good title run though, and that's mainly because the UFC heavyweight division is just so dead. And let's talk about it. What is next for Aspinall? I think that is probably going to be the Cyril Gane fight. Gane did win that number one contender fight against Volkov, even though most people think that Volkov won the fight. I tend to be one of those people, but Gane got the decision. He got the result, so you have to give it to him, I guess. I mean, there's really not a lot of people out there. You do have Volkov waiting. You've got guys like Curtis Blades, I guess, even though we'll talk about his win over the weekend. Jalton Almeida threw his hat in the ring. He's somebody that's new that I would like to see maybe. Who else? Pavlovich is there. I don't really know. Cortez Acosta maybe? I don't know. There's a lot of not huge names and not super enticing fights. And I don't know if there's anybody in the heavyweight division at the moment that really gives Tom Aspinall a good run for his money. I really don't know if there is. Uh, you do have some names outside of it, though. Alex Pereira posted the other week. He's like 245 pounds. We know that he wants the Ankalaev rematch. If that, for whatever reason, doesn't happen, do we maybe get to see Pereira move up to heavyweight early and go straight for the title? I wouldn't be mad if he got that, even though it's, you're getting a title shot in the division above off a loss. It's not how usually the UFC does stuff. But I really wouldn't mind seeing it just because Aspinall versus Pereira is such an incredible fight. You also have Francis Ngannou talking about wanting to come back. Dana White says he doesn't want him to. I would like to see Ngannou rejoin the UFC after he's done with the PFL, and I would certainly watch Aspinall versus Ngannou. So they do have big fights that are possible, but at the moment not happening. So I don't know. I guess it would probably be Aspinall versus Iragan next, which is whatever. But I don't know. It's just I'm glad that this whole story's finally over and we can just move on. Because I got to the point where I don't even care about this whole they're gonna fight. So I just want to see the heavyweight championship be contested. I mean, he's kept Tom out of the ring for a year now, so it's ridiculous. Anyways, let's get into this weekend's past action, and we've got a lot to talk about. I mentioned it there a little bit with Curtis Blades. Let's talk about UFC Baku in Azerbaijan. Main card, main event was, of course, Khalil Rountree, quite honestly dominating Jamahal Hill. Won pretty much every round. It wasn't the most exciting fight. It was all stand-up, and I don't know. I mean, Jamahal just wasn't really doing a whole lot. This is now 3 back-to-back losses for him. He just hasn't looked good at all, and it's like he's missing some like killer instinct, I guess. Like I see him kind of just standing there and not even doing a whole lot. I mean, Khalil Rountree, was just able to, kind of, put on a really great display, and he didn't have to do anything. He didn't even have to go into any deep waters, really. He just kind of dominated him with the boxing, which is meant to be kind of Jamahal Hill's thing, no? So I don't know. It was a little bit disappointing performance from Jamahal Hill for sure. Very good performance from Khalil Rountree. Obviously, he's had his title fight back with Pereira was incredible, and he looked great in that. And it's good to see that he's still on a good run and is, top 5 light heavyweight at the moment, and is going to get himself into a big fight. If it's going to be Pereira Ankalaev too, I see no issue with doing Rountree versus Yuri Prochazka. That's a 2 top 5 light heavyweights, probably the next 2 guys in line. Yuri is waiting for that next title shot. Have him fight, Rountree in the meantime. You also got some other guys in the mix, like Olberg, I guess, but I don't know. I would really like to see some another big fight for Khalil Rountree because he looked great. As for Jamahal Hill, I don't even know what you do with him. Descend him down the rankings, I guess. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what's going on with him. I'm not even trying to be like a hater. I'm curious. Like I get it. He's been fighting the top of the UFC, but he's just really looking a little bit washed to me. Anyways, moving on from that, the card itself was not too great. I think there was only 2 finishes in total. A lot of decisions, some okay fights, but a lot of decisions. Rafael Fiziev, again, kind of dominated Ignacio Bahamondes. I was expecting that one to be a little bit closer, but it was still decently fun. Curtis Blades got himself a split decision win over Rizvan Kuniev. I saw a lot of people think that they think that Kuniev won the fight. I think it was hard to say. Not a lot happened, so I'm not really mad at the decision, but I'm also not surprised they gave it to Blades. Maybe the star of the card, Mikdebek Orobai, continues to be a very, very fun prospect. I think it's time for him to get ranked at 205 in the UFC. He's putting on great win after great win and got himself a first-round submission. The other finish was Nazim Sadikov stopping Nicolas Mota in the second round. That was a lot of fun. He obviously had a huge pop from the crowd. And you had some other fun stuff in there. Seokion KO or Ko upsetting Oban Elliott was pretty fun. Ismail Nardiev hit Junyoung Park with an incredibly illegal, I think it was a knee, something like that. It was just like he was like down on the ground and it was just super illegal. And then Park put him through hell for the rest of the fight, and got himself a unanimous decision victory. Other than that, not a whole lot else to talk about really. First fight of the night was pretty funny with Hamdi Abdel Wahab versus Muhammad Usman. Usman got the win. and did not look too great. So obviously the older or younger brother, I think, of Kamaru Usman. He's a heavyweight, and I don't know. There's some highlights of Usman just kind of doing some really weird stuff in that fight, stumbling around, almost like a DDP, but not good. But yeah, it was pretty fun. It wasn't really the best card, but it is what it is. You had some fun fights in there, I guess, but barely any finishes. What was a really fun card in Birmingham, you had Galal Yafai being upset by Francisco Rodriguez. What a performance from Chivas. I mean, he beat the hell out of Galal Yafai. And look, I came into this not too familiar with Rodriguez's work, knowing it's going to be Yafai's probably his toughest fight, and definitely a must win for him. Oh, I guess it wasn't a must win. I mean, he'll still be able to, climb back up there, but definitely a win that he needed because he wins this, he was going to get a shot at the unified champion in Kenshiro Taraji, and it was it was a clinical display from Rodriguez. I don't know how many rounds of that fight you can honestly give to Galal Yafai. I gave him 2 rounds, and I'm not even that confident in that. He was also dropped in the 12th and final round. Rodriguez just came out swinging immediately, and as soon as the fight started, I was like, oh, he's going to give him problems. And Yafai just didn't have a lot of defense in there. Hell of a chin. Very, very tough. Took tons of punishment. I thought the corner could have and probably should have pulled him out at some point because it only grew throughout the fight how much punishment he was taking, and he didn't get dropped until the final round. So he definitely was very tough in there, but I don't know. I thought that he had taken more than enough shots, and it was definitely not the most pleasant to see because I'm a big fan of Galify. I'm a big fan of boxing, and I don't want to see these young guys. Well, I guess he's not even that young, but young in their career guys take a ton of unnecessary punishment. Well, we don't really need to see all that. So, but I also understand he never got seriously hurt in there. It was just more of an accumulation type thing, and I don't know. It was a tough loss for Galal. Coming off such a big win over Sonny Edwards when he really didn't get the recognition he deserved for that win. And now he gets to come in and he gets elevated to main event here and comes up short. As for Rodriguez, fantastic performance away and just, to be the champ, you got to beat the champ, and he beat him up. And he's now mandatory for Kenshiro Taraji, Ricardo Sandoval, whoever wins that one. And yeah, he was a very, very fun fighter. So he's got a new fan in me. Galal Yafai can still bounce back. But I think he was just showed that, maybe it was a little bit too early for him in his pro career. And but you have to question. I mean, he needed to be at this point. He's like, 32? You need to get up these levels. So I'm not really sure. Push him back down the rankings a little bit, but get him a good fight. And I don't know. Hopefully he's able to get back up. But it just is a question of, you're supposed to be in your prime right now. And again, Francisco Rodriguez is an elite fighter. He is a top world level fighter, but if you can't deal with him, how are you going to become a champion when these are the guys in your way? But anyways, moving on from that, co-main event, Kona Walker. This guy is never, ever boring. He knocked out Liam Taylor in 7 rounds. And Taylor had some success in there, but Kona Walker was doing the better work. Just really, really fun to watch, always is. And nonstop action, and he looked great defending his British welterweight title. Again, I would love to see Echo Esman versus Kona Walker. I'm not sure how possible that is with Esman now kind of moving up to world level, beating Josh Taylor, which was incredible. But you do have guys like Konstantin Ursu, who holds the Commonwealth title. I know Matchroom's got some other guys like Pat McCormack you could throw him in there with. There's a lot of fights for Kona Walker, and they were talking about how he's always been just a British level guy, and that was always the goal. But they're saying, could we move up from there because he's just dominating the British scene, and I'd kind of like to see him get a little bit of a step up to maybe European or even world level. I don't know. I don't think that he ever wins a world title, but he'll always be in fun fights. Peter McGrail dominated Ionut Baluta. Scorecards were a little bit closer than I thought. One of them had it at 95-95. The other two I thought were spot on at 97-93. That's how I had it. Not the best performance, to be honest. Sure, he looked really good. I thought the commentary was glazing him a bit much. I thought he still had a really good win against a tough guy in there, and looked solid and boxed well. It's just, I don't know. It just didn't blow me away. I thought that he could have stopped him. I think that McGrail is capable of that. And I don't know, I just kind of feel for McGrail because he was meant to get the Dennis McCann fight, and then McCann pulls out. And then he is, meant to get the Shabazz Massoud fight, and then Massoud pulls out. And so it just kind of sucks for him because he's on the verge of getting these really, really big, fun fights 50-50 matches, and they're just not coming for him. So I don't know. Hopefully the next one that pops up, he gets it. Hopefully they can rebook the Masood fight because that was just going to be so good. And but we'll see. Who knows? Also on that card, you had the return of Pat Brown. He had himself another second round stoppage. Looked great. What's more interesting to me is that they're already going to step him up to 8 rounds. We know he comes back next week on July 5th on the Catterall Eubank undercard. That time he's going to be facing Lewis Oakford, who obviously is a pretty a pretty good test. He's only ever lost to Alois Jr. and to John Hedges, who are two other top kind of British cruiserweights. So they're really pushing Pat Brown up this hill pretty fast and moving him along quite nice. And in just his third fight, he's going to be in an 8 rounder. So I am curious how quickly we're going to start to see him, getting into like an English title fight. Maybe I think that could happen next year, if not even the end of this year. So we'll see. But I love how active he's getting, and he is becoming a very fun prospect to watch. Speaking of fun prospects, the debut of Tia May Aiton was incredible. She got a third round stoppage and was really, really fun to watch. Came out swinging, very fun, all action pressure fighter, and I thought she had a terrific debut. One of the best debuts I've seen in a while. I was watching, I was like, oh my God, I love watching this fighter. So, yeah, hopefully they get her back out again soon. I thought that she really put on a show. And then you had Aaron Bowen getting himself a knockout victory, or a TKO victory, I should say, in the fourth round. And then you had decision victories for Giorgio Vizioli, Ibrahim Suleiman, and Hamza Udin. Nothing really blew me away there. They all looked good. Or actually, excuse me, Hamza Udin got himself a stoppage, which was nice to see because he's gone the distance one too many times, and so it was cool to see him get the stoppage in the seventh round. Yeah, moving on from that card, we had some other boxing cards we'll talk about. Vito Milnicki versus Kamil Gardzielak. I didn't watch a lot of the prelims, but I did watch the fights I was more interested in. Brandon Lee, I thought, had an okay performance, not great. He didn't get the stoppage, and this is his second 8 rounder. I think he's gone the distance. He hasn't fought in. This was his first fight in almost a year. I don't know why he signed with Queensberry when they're British and they're not really gonna prioritize getting in American fights. So I don't know. Hopefully he can get some better wins, but he's like 30-0 now, and it's like 26. So I feel like it's time for him to start moving up the levels and at least getting into 10-round fights. And, he could really start to mix it in with all those other top American 140 pounders, and it's just not happening for him. So he needs to have his career better managed and get way more active. You had Damien Kaneba versus Marcin Sui, which was a good win for Kaneba, stopping him after 8 rounds. They looked huge in there. The ring in Newark was apparently 14-14, which I don't even know if that's proper sanction. I thought that it was meant to be at least 16-16. It was so tiny. And, with Kaneba, who's like, 6'7", 6'8", it looked really, really small and very funny. I get it's an all-action ring, but I don't know. A lot of the fights weren't even all-action. But yeah, that one's a bit of a mess. Jahai Tucker, Lorenzo Simpson did prove to be a good fight. It was a very good fight from the prospect of it. Tucker looked awesome. He's definitely had an interesting career and has had some issues, but I thought this was probably his best performance, getting a 97-93 victory over Truck, and I really enjoyed the fight. I thought that he boxed well and threw a lot. He has a really awkward style where he just kind of like throws these big shots and then just kind of like gets really low and kind of clinches with you a ton. And it's not always the most appetizing to watch, but I thought he was just really pinging Simpson's head off for the whole fight. And then the main event, of course, you have Vito Milnicki Jr., who looked solid once again. He had a 189 victory over Kamil Gardzielak, a fellow undefeated fighter. Or actually, Milnicki's not undefeated. I forgot about that. But really solid win. Good bounce back from that draw against Connor Coyle, which really should have been a victory for him. He totally won, and tonight probably should have been that rematch, but it's whatever. Yeah, this wasn't the best performance from Milnicki. Not to say that because he looked awesome. He did. He looked fantastic. It just wasn't the most exciting to watch. It was just 10 rounds of domination. Never really pushed the pedal too much. And I don't know. I just want to see him in a more meaningful fight. And he's had a few really solid wins now back to back. It seemed when he was at 154, we were going to get the Xander Zayas fight. That didn't happen. So now that he's at 160, I want another fight like that. Honestly, maybe do him and Jahai Tucker. I wouldn't mind that at all. I think Milnicki wins that, but it'd be really fun. Why not? You also had the return of Callum Walsh, who unfortunately had a big cut over his eye, and the fight got stopped after just 4 rounds. But he won all 4 of those rounds and got a unanimous decision victory over Elias Espadas. It's definitely not the way you want to see the fight end, and he looked really solid in that first round and continued to win the second through fourth when he had a big cut and couldn't see. So he's still a really solid fighter. It was a good test. They talked about Fernando Vargas Jr. calling him out, and he's saying, "Oh, I'd love to do that on the Canelo Crawford undercard. I wouldn't mind that. I don't know if it goes on that card, but I do want to see Callum Walsh just fight somebody else with a name. Even though I totally think he beats Vargas, I would like to see just him face somebody else with a notable profile, and then get him up to world level because I feel like we're kind of treading water here with him." On that undercard, you had Umar Zambekov, who had a nice win. Kane Sandoval, second round knockout. Roxy Verduzco. Oh, and then Vernon Brown knocking out Gore Uritsian for the upset. Uritsian was winning. I had him winning, of the first 6 rounds, I had him winning 5 of them. Get into the 7th. Brown hits him with a huge hook that sends him down, and I'm surprised he got up. And then Brown just gives him hell for the next minute and a half, and the ref was definitely letting Uritsian off the chain a little bit because he was the A side. I was thinking if this was Uritsian putting Brown in this position, the fight would have already been over, but Uritsian was just on skates, and the ref eventually called it, and Brown got himself a huge comeback from behind, upset KO victory. That was really, really impressive, I thought, and very cool to see. So that was huge. And then you also had the pro debut of Jenilyn Olseem, who got herself a draw. I don't know if she even deserved that. I thought that Jessica Radke Maltez kind of beat her, and this is the second time actually on a 360 promotion show where they had a prospect debut and not look good, and seeming like they were going to lose the fight, and then they get a draw. So that was interesting. I just thought I love to see upsets, especially on debuts, but didn't get the rightful upset there. We also had a PFL card, the World Tournament number 6. So we now know what our finals are going to be. Gadzi Rabadonov absolutely obliterated Kevin Lee in 2 minutes. I think he's had probably less than 3 minutes in the cage this whole tournament. So that was pretty crazy, and he's obviously now going to go into the final against Alfie Davis, who had a nice win over Brent Primus. So that should be a good one, but I just think that Gadzi Rabadonov is totally going to win the tournament. Even though I thought Alfie looked good, I just think that he's another monster. He won it last year, and there's really no competition for him. Kevin Lee is very washed, I know, and he stepped in on short notice, but I don't know. I think that it could have been anyone in there, and Rabadonov would have taken care of them. I really do think that he is a very, very good talent. Liz Carmouche had a pretty dominant win over Alora Donna, won every round on every scorecard. So she looked great. She's now set to face Jenna Bishop, who submitted Ekaterina Shakalova in the second round of their fight. So that's honestly a final I'm really looking forward to. The women's flyweight division has been very entertaining this season, and Liz Carmouche obviously is probably the biggest star in it, and Jenna Bishop has had some great victories. So I'm excited for that one. And then you also had the bantamweights, where we're going to see Justin Wetzel take on Mercilli Alves, who both had 30-27 victories all the way around. So that one should be a good one. Not really sure who wins that at the moment, but I'm looking forward to it. Not the biggest name, thing there in terms of who we think is going to win, but Alves, obviously had the upset win in his first fight, so maybe you pick him, but Wetzel's looked really, really dominant. I don't know. It's an interesting fight. But other than that, it was an okay card. I thought Magomedov got himself a little bit of a lucky victory. I thought Sarvarjan Kamidov kind of deserved that win. Derek Kelly had a close call where he was, had a very competitive fight with Mike Kamel, but then got the submission at the end. I was impressed with Vinicius Sensi getting a submission from the position he had. And then on the main card, because really a lot of the fights on that card were not great, you had Archie Colgan upsetting Mansour Barnaoui in really, really fun fashion. Just, bloodied his nose like crazy, and he looked crazy. So that was a lot of fun. But I don't know. There was a decent card, and then you had the BKFC card, which was a lot of fun. The 76 was their debut in Texas. Ben Bonner pulling off the upset. I don't even know if he was actually the underdog. I'm just assuming it was because he came in on a few weeks' note or a week and a half's notice to face Tony Soto for the interim lightweight title, and dropped him in the first round and the second round, and then the last 3 were more competitive. I gave Bonner one of those rounds, so my scorecard for the fight ended up being 48-45 in favor of the Englishman. He's now mandatory for Franco Tenaglia for that real lightweight title, and just really impressive for him to come in on such short notice and put on that display. Andrei Arlovsky made his BKFC debut at heavyweight. competitive, but mostly good win for Andrei Arlovsky. He is, I'd say, is competitive. It was competitive at first, and it started to grow, and then they pulled out Copeland at the end. But it looks like they could be setting up him versus Ben Rothwell soon for the heavyweight title. I would love to see that. Jessica I had another good win, dominant, won every round pretty much against Maria Akapova. Kenzie Morrison, the son of Tommy Morrison, he had a really big first round finish. JC De Leon had a really weird win over Rumid War where he was winning the fight, and then in the third, it looked like War honestly knocked him down, and the ref kind of missed it and called it a slip when it was definitely a knockdown. And then I don't know if that was what prompted it because War was already having some issues with his eye, but War just says like I'm done and like walks off, and like, that's just the end of the fight. It was really absurd, but De Leon was on his way to the victory anyway. Just a really weird finish to the fight. Um, you had Rodney Hinton and Darren Whitney. That was a really, really awesome, exciting fight. Anthony Gare with the first round finish. Willie Gates had a great win. Yeah, there was just a lot of fun stuff on that card. I found it interesting how the prelims were all 3 rounds only. And I kind of liked that. I kind of like, not having every fight be 5 rounds because not every fight needs to. And maybe that was a Texas Commission thing saying, hey, you need to, these guys, yeah, I only want them fighting in 3 rounds. I don't want them to be in there for 5 for like a safety thing because they weren't as experienced maybe. Or if it was, hey, for our free fights, let's try and do something new. Let's try and make them shorter, more bite-sized fights, so we can just like move them through them quicker and have this like little, shorter fights. And I kind of liked it. I kind of liked the 3 round fights. Only 6 minute fights, so definitely have to work for it more. And there were one or two of those where they went the distance, and I felt like okay, we could have done more here, but I don't know. I quite liked having uh, the 3 round fights. I also thought Jeremy Sauceda had a good finish and good KO in his fight. But yeah, that's all the action from this weekend. Really, I did see David Stevens had a decision win over Peter Kamukov. I didn't see that fight. I also saw that Leonardo Rubalcava got upset. Obviously, his last fight, I thought that he lost and he got the decision there. Maybe it was a draw actually, but this time he wasn't as lucky and lost a split decision. I haven't seen it, so I don't want to speak on it, but it is funny how luck comes around and goes, for when you're supposed to lose a fight and they help you out, and the next time, you lose it. So it's just interesting how that works. But moving on from that, we're going to talk about some news going on. Canelo and Crawford had their first 2 press conferences since the last episode. Uh, Very entertaining. I thought that they moved through it really fast and focused on it was more UFC type press conferences. Dana White obviously hosted one of them where it was more asking questions from the press instead of having somebody on board asking a lot of questions. They confirmed that Max Kellerman is going to be on the broadcast team alongside Jim Lampley, so they're bringing back like the old HBO crew, which is cool. Turkey was on stage for the pressers. Dana White obviously was there, and that was pretty cool to see him doing the face-off. We had a shove. Crawford shoved Canelo. Or I think it was no. Crawford got into Canelo's face, and then Canelo shoved him. A little bit of smack talk at the pressers, nothing too crazy. Just saying, oh, you've never fought anyone. I'll show you. No, you're not gonna show me. And then Canelo obviously on their podcast they had where Canelo's talking about you've never beaten anybody of note. And so I do think they don't like each other. They don't hate each other, but they don't like each other, and they're starting to show a little bit more of the animosity come out. They do have one more presser to do, and that'll be on Friday at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. I'm sure they'll do a face-off in the stadium, but the animosity is definitely growing, and I'm enjoying this build-up a lot. Speaking of Turkey, he had some other plans he was talking about. He says that the plan is for December 27th, which I love having a card that late in the year, is for Naoya Inoue to headline in Riyadh versus Alan Picasso on a Japan versus Mexico card. Now, obviously, I thought that we were kind of moved past the Picasso fight. It seems like the plan is no longer to do him moving up to featherweight to fight Nick Ball in December, which I actually like because I want him to stay at 122 until Junto Nakatani gets there, and then we can have that, and then he can move up to featherweight. But keep him at 122 for now. I don't hate the Picasso fight. But I also feel like there maybe is somebody else at 122 that he could fight, but he is running out of names, so it's whatever. But as far as the Japan versus Mexico card goes, I think that sounds like fun. Those are 2 of the best countries, most exciting fighters. Potential fights on that card could be Junto Nakatani making his 122 debut against Ramon Cardenas. That would be absolute carnage. Also possible is Kenshiro Taraji versus Francisco Rodriguez, who just beat Galal Yafai. I think that all three of those fights are fights that you definitely favor the Japanese in, so they may want to choose some other Mexicans to go on the card as well. Honestly, I have an idea, and this may be a little bit too far out there, but Jin Sasaki just fought. Raul Curiel is about to fight. That's a really fun Japan versus Mexico fight that isn't just in the lower weight divisions that you would maybe favor the Mexican in, but Raul Curiel is about to get himself into a WBA title eliminator, so he may not want to do another fight. But yeah, I think that that's another possibility that you could have there. And we'll just have to see what ends up being on this card. But I really do like the concept of doing another 5v5 or whatever it is of a country versus country. And Japan versus Mexico sounds like a good one. I don't want to just see USA versus UK. I want to see some other stuff. So I like that idea. He also says he has plans for a November card, and fights he'd like to put on it include Jerome Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz Jr., which is the fight that I would love to see happen at 154. It's amazing. Martin Bakoli versus Moses Itauma, which is an interesting one. Then they are trying to move Itauma up that chain really fast, and he's obviously assuming Itauma gets past Dillian White, which we're all sure he probably will. William Zepeda versus Andy Cruz, which I think is a really, really good fight and a really well matched fight. He's obviously also assuming that William Zepeda maybe loses to or he loses to Shakur Stevenson, or he beats him, and this is him defending his belt. I'm not really sure why he's planning fights ahead for guys who have fights coming up in just a few weeks. Andy Cruz is going to fight Raymond Murataya, it seems, so I don't know, but I do like that matchup. And then Christian and Billy versus Lester Martinez, who both have fights coming up. Billy fights tomorrow night. Martinez fights in a few weeks, but that's a really good fight to me. Yeah, so he's got some good plans. I don't know how much of this will come to fruition, but I like how openly he talks about all the super fights he wants to make. And, we'll just have to see over the next couple of months what these plans end up being. And I'm curious where this November card is. I'm guessing it's in Saudi Arabia, but it also could not be. I don't think he said where it's planning on being, but considering they're doing the August card in Saudi and the December, maybe they are wanting to do another Ring Magazine card outside of the kingdom and do it in. I'm guessing by the looks of this card, this would probably not be in the UK. Maybe it's somewhere in the US again. I just hope it's not New York because they keep on doing New York. But we'll just have to see where it ends up being and how much of it ends up happening. Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr. verbally agree to fight. I put no stock into stuff like this. I'm sorry. Verbally agree to fight means nothing. Everybody says, "Oh, I'll fight you." Yeah, that doesn't mean anything. We need an actual contract. Like, let me know when they sign the contract. Brian Norman has a thing with not wanting to take big fights unless he gets a huge payday, and this is a fight that I think Turkey would be involved in, so it makes sense. And by the way, I don't dislike the fight. I do like the fight. I want Devin Haney to get a title shot at 147. Brian Norman Jr. is potentially now the best champion at 147 with Boots moving up. It's a close fight, honestly, now, and it's one that, Haney's obviously very afraid to get hit. Brian Norman's a power puncher. So it's a really good challenge for the very skilled but gun-shy Devin Haney. Let's do it, man. But I'm not believing it until we have actual negotiations being talked about, not just, yeah, I'll fight you, yeah, me too. Okay, it's happening. No, it's not happening. UFC announced a lot of their main events for the next coming up fight nights in August and September. Johnny Walker versus Zhang Mingyang is going to happen to headline UFC Shanghai. They are sacrificing Johnny Walker yet again, and this is just such a mismatch. And I understand Mingyang is just now entering the rankings, but I kind of want to see him in a better matched fight. Co-main event is going to be Brian Ortega versus Aljamain Sterling, which is an incredible featherweight fight. And that really could be the main event, or at least on a pay-per-view over this. And I understand that Zhang Mingyang is a Chinaman, and they want him to headline because he'll sell the most tickets. I understand that part of it, but Ortega Sterling is definitely being seen as the main event here. There's not a doubt in my mind. It's a great fight. We also heard that September 6th in Paris, it'll be Nasruddin Imavov versus Caio Barajo, which is a fight that we've been wanting to see happen, and I'm glad it finally is. Imavov getting to headline in Paris is big for him, and this is definitely a number one contendership fight because you have DDP versus Hamzat a month earlier, just a few weeks earlier, looking for whoever's going to be next at middleweight. Imavov is right there. Barajo's right behind him. I think this is the perfect fight to make for the 185-pound division. And I'm just glad that they're getting fights because Imavov hasn't fought since February. Barajo hasn't fought since last August. He's been out of the cage for a very long time. So It's good to see that they're going to keep him active and get this fight here, and I really like that one a lot as a main event for a fight night. Another fantastic main event for a fight night. UFC Noche will be headlined on September 13th by Diego Lopez and Gian Silva. So Silva's getting a huge shot after just now entering the rankings really, and Diego Lopez coming off a title loss. And I saw Silva's opening as the favorite. I don't know if I want to believe he's the favorite, if I think he's going to win just yet, just because we're seeing the fighting nerds elevate into title contention, and John Silva's going really fast, and I don't know. I don't know if I want to say, oh yeah, Silva's gonna win because Diego Lopez is still a tremendous fighter. Sure, he's coming off a loss, and Silva's coming off a great win, but I still think Lopez has shown more in his career in terms of top level competition. So I don't want to say just yet that Silva is going to beat him, and I'm not sure who wins that, but I would probably lean towards Lopez at the moment. I am a little bit curious how that's headlining UFC Noche with two Brazilians. Then again, they had an American versus Georgian last time. I feel like they need to get back to having a big Mexican main event for them, but whatever. Moving on from there, uh, Oslis Iglesias versus Vladimir Shishkin has been agreed for September 4th in Montreal, so it does look like it'll be on an Eye of the Tiger show, but Salida gets their wish with giving Shishkin more time to prepare. September 4th is going to be a Thursday, I think, so I'm a little surprised they're still doing the Thursday night show for that. It seems like they'll just do it at the Montreal Casino. That's a IBF World Title Eliminator to fight Canelo. That could probably be on a better night with a little bit bigger, audience, but who knows? It's a really good fight. Glad Iglesias is finally getting the title possibility recognition that he needs and deserves. Um, MVP has announced its first fight night, so this is not like the other prospects cards. This is more in the vein of, if you remember back like maybe 2 years ago, they had two cards that were technically prospects, but they were headlined by Amanda Serrano, and the next one was headlined by Jake Paul when he fought at the Crib Royale. So there's a little bit more like that where it's bigger fights headlining them, and I talk a lot about MVP and how I do think that they are just doing great things in the sport, and they're improving everything, their production, their fights, their roster, their just everything and their structure, and I really like this. So the fight night will be headlined by Yankiel Rivera versus Angelino Cordova, which is a fight that we've been waiting for a while. I could be wrong, but I think that this is for the WBA interim flyweight championship. Again, I'm not entirely sure if that's spot on. I'll try and double check, but I do think that that was ordered by the WBA. I don't know if it's an eliminator or if it's an interim title fight, but it's a fight I'm definitely very excited for. I think that's a great one. Co-main event is going to be Jermaine Ortiz versus Steve Claggett. So both of Teofimo Lopez's opponents from 2024. And yeah, it is the WBA interim championship. But anyway, sorry. These are both guys who fought Tio in 2024. Ortiz definitely had the better performance. A lot of people thought he beat Teofimo. So take with that what you will, but this is a really, really solid 140-pound fight, I think. And, it's one that you would probably have to favor Jermaine Ortiz in. Steve Claggett has just had so many fights and so many losses that I feel like every time he gets into a good fight like this, he just comes up short. And but who knows? But I really do like this as the co-main event. I saw that on the WBA website, Yoenis Tellez versus Abbas Baru is set for August 23rd in Orlando for the WBA interim super welterweight championship. Obviously, Tellez is also with Box Lab, which is who does all the events in the Cree Royale, so it makes sense there. That fight would be on that card. I don't know why it wasn't announced yet, but that does seem like it'd go on this card. And if it is, man, that is a really, really solid three-pack of fights, two interim title fights, one of which is at 154. And, I'm really happy with that fight. Abbas Baru, I feel like he's been waiting to get his shot. He's been mandatory at the WBA for a while, so cool to see he's going to get against Tellez, although I don't think that he beats Tellez. I think Tellez is something special. But I think really like that little card of fights. Yankiel Rivera is also finally getting his title shot, and Angelino Cordova is getting another shot after, he had that loss to Julio Cesar Martinez, who, was on PEDs. So this is all well and fair, and yeah, it's going to be a really awesome night. Also, in Florida, on August 23rd, is going to be Kubrat Pulev versus Michael Hunter for the WBA regular heavyweight championship. It's so stupid. This is, like the third heavyweight champion that the WBA has right now. But we knew this fight was happening. Hopefully, the winner of this, we just see them fight Fabio Wardley, because it seems like they want to kind of keep him in that world championship type level, but without getting him in there and trying to match him up with Usyk or somebody like that. But I would like to see Wardley versus the winner of this. Yeah. Islam Makhachev wants to fight Jack De La Maddalena at MSG in November, which is interesting because I also saw that Tom Aspinall was wanting to fight in Abu Dhabi for his heavyweight title fight, and so it seemed like those were the two events we were bouncing between. Like, oh, Islam will fight in Abu Dhabi and Tom will fight in MSG. Well, they want to fight in the opposite thing, so I'll probably switch that around. I'm guessing I don't see why not. Islam says he wants to fight, on the biggest stage at Madison Square Garden. I think that he deserves that opportunity, and they would be happy to have him. I also did see that he is saying he's struggling with bulking up in weight to get to welterweight, which is interesting to me because he talks about, we see his weight, he's like 180 outside of fight camp, and I'm like, welterweight's 170. But I think that means he wants to be more the size of a welterweight because right now when he's at 180, sure he's a bit of a big lightweight, but he's closer to the size. All the other guys are around that weight too outside of the fight, outside of the cage. So I think that he's wanting to get a little bit bigger, but he's saying it's hard for him to gain a lot of weight because he doesn't want to just eat junk food. He wants to gain muscle and stuff, which is good. We're hearing that the WBC has confirmed, unfortunately, honestly, that Pitbull Cruz versus Angel Fierro 2 will be for the WBC Interim Super Lightweight Championship. I just don't really see the point in that because I thought Pitbull was moving down to 135. And then, I really liked the rematch because the first fight was so electric, but I don't think this needs to have title stakes on the line. Can we not just have it be a fight? And if Cruz wins and he goes to number 1 in the rankings somehow, cool, but there's no need to make this an interim title fight. This is just ridiculous. Dave Allen says that he has been approached for the Joseph Parker fight, which is honestly just laughable. It really is. I don't understand why we're giving Dave Allen why he's getting all this. Oh, he's gonna fight him. He's gonna fight him. Like the Deontay Wilder, is just like a funny idea, but that's not actually gonna happen. And then we talk about Joseph Parker versus, Derek Chisora, and I'm like, why are they trying to get Parker such a BS fight? Because I guess he really just doesn't want to take any risks while he waits on the Usyk Dubois 2 winner. I'd like him to fight Ajit Kabayel, to be honest, but Kabayel is, we're hearing that Frank Warren is planning a homecoming for him in the autumn in Germany, which I have no objections to. I would have liked to see Kabayel versus Coley there, but that's not going to happen. I do want to see Kabayel finally get his headline moment in the spotlight, and that'd be cool to have it in Germany. Don't get a lot of fights in Germany, so I'm cool with that plan. I just like to have Joseph Parker fight someone better, and I like to have Dave Allen fight somebody more at his level. I don't understand. If Johnny Fisher had won that fight, would we be talking about Johnny Fisher versus Deontay Wilder, Johnny Fisher versus Joseph Parker? No, we wouldn't. So why are we doing it with Dave Allen? He had one good win in the past few years. Most of them he got stopped by English level fighters. Like, I don't get it. Put him in a British title fight. That's his level. Let's not talk about him versus Joseph Parker. That's just ridiculous. And I don't know. It just kind of frustrates me because it makes no sense why he's getting all these opportunities all of a sudden. Anyways, it's not going to happen. There's no way they can let that happen because it's just silly. Michael Morales versus Leon Edwards is being talked about to happen at UFC 320 in Vegas, and oh man, they're not looking to get Leon into a good position. Obviously, he should be lower down on the rankings than he is, and Michael Morales is kind of just now entering the rankings. Excuse me. But man, he's a killer. He just eradicated Gilbert Burns, and I think he kind of does the same to Leon Edwards. I think probably Leon Edwards stands more of a chance than Gilbert Burns does, but off his last 2 performances, Leon Edwards is just looking not great at all, and them already pushing him down to a gatekeeper is pretty crazy to me. I'd like to see him get a little bit of a better fight than that, but I also wouldn't mind them seeing him, all right, bro, like, this is what you get for losing, you gotta go to the rankings, and yeah, Michael Morales probably beats him up pretty bad. Other than that, we're also seeing that apparently Kevin Holland is going to be fighting again at UFC 318 in New Orleans, literally like a month and a half less from his last fight. Apparently this time it'll be against Daniel Rodriguez. He really wants to get in his 6 fights this year. He's going to have 4 fights in 7 months, which is honestly just so commendable and impressive that he is this active, and I love to see it, I want to fight. Great. When am I back out next? I didn't get injured or anything. Get me back out as soon as possible. And it's cool the UFC's on track with giving him so many fights. Vidal Riley says that Queensberry offered Alloys for August. He wanted September and didn't duck. I don't know, man. It's not that big of a difference. I guess that he's saying I didn't turn down the fight. I just turned down the date. Saying, yeah, I would like to fight him, but can we fight in September, not August? I want more time to prepare for that, which is fair, I guess. But I don't know. I just want to see that fight. It makes sense right now, and if not, do Alloys versus John Hedges or something, and Vidal gets himself like a European title fight, maybe. I don't know, but Vidal versus Alloys is the one to make right now, and hopefully they still get it done. Misfits Boxing is saying that they're going to be reducing to 6 events a year. This is a little bit worrying. They're definitely trying to sell it as quality over quantity, and we're going to stack every card and have all this stuff, and this is just for the crossover fights. But I don't know. I think the Misfits has a lot of big ambitions, and they're just struggling to deliver, and they are having a lot of issues with their KSI fight getting canceled, and then they canceled the entire event, and then their next event after that got postponed a month for no reason. So we're halfway through the year. They've only had 2 events. We don't even know when the next one's going to be. And yeah, it's definitely a bad year for Misfits, and hopefully they can get back on track because I do enjoy the product, but it just hasn't been very consistent lately at all. And they've had a lot of these issues from the start, and they still haven't fixed them, so something's got to change. We're hearing that, well, we're not hearing this. We saw the face-off, I'm sure everyone did, between Carmel Moten and Zakeen Moses at, I'm not sure where they were, but they just had a little bit of a face-off and in front of a crowd, and everyone loved it, whatever. And then we're hearing that it's possible for that fight to happen on the Canelo vs. Crawford undercard on September 13th. I would love to see top prospects like that face off and actually fight each other, but it's just never going to happen. So there's not a lot of point in really hoping it does because it just won't. But hopefully that's something that we can start to do in the future and start to take these top guys and let's just match them up. And we all know that Carmel beats Zaquin Moses, but Zaquin Moses is still a really solid fighter. But I just think that he gets pieced up by Carmel. And then lastly, Mark Magsayo is going to be returning to the ring to face Jorge Mata on July 19th on the Pacquiao vs. Barrios undercard. This undercard is looking super stacked. I mean, even just like their prelims is going to be even just their prelims is going to be a really, really solid show of fights. It could be like a normal non-pay-per-view PBC card, to be honest. But yeah, so hopefully this is true. I did see it get announced just now, so it is true. But hopefully it's a good win for Magsayo. Not the best fight, I don't think. And then we see him in another real fight because he's still around at 100. I guess he's at 135 pounds now. That's what he waited for his last fight. I don't know if he's planning to stay at 135 or 130. I'm not really sure what he's doing, but we'll see what they end up doing with him in his career. But I don't know. He's just another one of those PBC fighters that has been a little bit of inactive lately and hasn't been in any meaningful fights. But that's all I've got for today. I know it was a long episode. I'm going to do another episode probably tomorrow. We're going to preview another huge weekend of combat sports. Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., Ilya Topuria versus Charles Oliveira, Deontay Wilder returns, Christian and Billy's title fight, and so much more. It's going to be an awesome weekend of fights, and I can't wait for it. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy the fights this weekend, and I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, with episode 65. Thank you. Peace out.